first episode opens with a college guy named Zion learning to meditate from a hotel staffer. Let us calm our chattering monkey minds. But he's distracted by a strange sound, which he identifies as gunshots. He sees people running and ducking for cover, and as more shots rings out, Zion wades through a knee-deep pool looking for his mother. He takes a moment to ask a Buddhist statue to, "Please let my mom be okay." But when more shots are fired, he gets angry. "I said, don't let anything happen to my mother," and as sirens blare, we see a dead body float by. We flash back to a week earlier, with a boat full of guests arriving at the White Lotus resort in Thailand. Timothy and Rick get off on the wrong foot immediately, with Timothy objecting to Rick's cigarette smoke. Timothy is there with his wife Victoria and their 3 kids, and Rick is there with his much younger girlfriend Chelsea. Also on board, Season 1's Belinda and Lori, Jacqueline and Kate. At the resort, we meet security guard Gaitok, who gives hotel staffer Mook a ride to work so she can greet the guests as they arrive. Chelsea gushes about how pretty Mook is, but Rick just grumbles, "Please stop talking." Victoria brags that her daughter Piper came here to write her thesis on Buddhism, and the 3 ladies reveal they've been friends since they were 9, but don't call them old friends. Longtime friends. They perk up too when they see the resort's muscle-bound health mentor Valentine. Plus, Belinda is here to soak up knowledge and bring it back to Maui with her, she tells spa manager Pornchai. Victoria sniffs, "We usually stay in the Caribbean," as she and her family get settled in their suite. They're stunned, though, when a hotel staffer tells them there's no Wi-Fi in the rooms. In fact, she asks to collect their phones and devices for the week, but the family quickly rejects that. In their room, Chelsea tells Mook that she used to be a yoga teacher, and Rick barely works. Rick wants to know more about the resort owner Shritala and her husband, and he's disappointed to learn the husband is ill and back in Bangkok. Once they're alone, Chelsea encourages him to get a facial, but he shrugs her off. She tells him, "You've got issues." In the ladies' suite, Jacqueline makes sure everyone likes their rooms. She's a TV actress, and she set up this trip, and she and Kate rave to each other about how great they look. "Oh, and Lori looks good too," they add. They toast to a week of new memories. The guests start to mingle. Saxon lays out by the pool, and when he sees Chelsea arrive, makes sure to parade in front of her shirtless. Piper visits a Buddhist temple, but her brother Lachlan would rather join Saxon at the pool, and Victoria just wants to take a nap. Timothy, though, gets an urgent call from someone at the Wall Street Journal. With Lachlan by his side, Saxon tries to flirt with the 3 ladies, and then Chelsea at the pool, but they ignore him. He's not daunted, though. "It's a numbers game," he tells Lachlan. At dinner that night, Timothy and Victoria both pressure Lachlan about what college he's going to. He wants Duke, she wants North Carolina, and Rick scoffs at the local cuisine. Belinda smiles when she sees an older black couple dining at another table, and Timothy finally answers the call from the Wall Street Journal, where a reporter is working on a story about his former co-worker's ties to Brunei. Timothy claims not to know anything about it, but he definitely looks flustered. Oh, and later, Rick scrolls through old photos of Shritala with her husband. What's the connection there, we wonder? Chelsea is alone at the hotel bar when she's joined by another young woman, a model who also has an annoying boyfriend. They live in a house right near the resort, and she points him out, and it's Greg, Tanya's ex from the first 2 seasons. He's living it up on Tanya's money. The girl and Chelsea decide to get drunk together, and we already have a bad feeling about this. The 3 ladies are drunk when they get back to their room, and Jacqueline and Kate are still gushing over each other. And then they turn to Lori, and Lori, everything you do is just so hard. Lori turns in for the night, but she can see Kate and Jacqueline giggling without her from her room, and she sobs a bit to herself. In bed that night, Saxon complains to Lachlan about their sister Piper. She's pretty hot, but I don't think she's ever been laid before. He's much more a materialist than a Buddhist. It's good to want things, as long as you can get them. Speaking of wanting things, he's not sure how to pleasure himself with his brother in the room, so he takes his tablet to the bathroom, bearing all as he shuts the door, with his brother watching. Timothy is still fuming as he goes to bed, and Victoria tries to soothe him, telling him how great his life is, but he doesn't look very comforted. First episode opens with Kate and Jacqueline sitting chatting after dinner about Lori and how much her divorce must have hurt her and her daughter Ellie. Kate talks about how Ellie has been thrown out of 2 schools for hitting and throwing furniture. Kate thinks it is because Lori raised her daughter in New York. The women talk about how she looks tired and defeated, despite the fact they both said to her face that she looks great. And then they judge her on her drinking and talk about how much wine she had with dinner. As they are talking, Lori scares them by banging on the door. And as soon as they let her in, they say they were just talking about how great she looks and how they can't wait to spend the week together. The next morning, as everyone gets up after their first night at the White Lotus resort, Belinda gets ready for her first day learning on the job, while Guy Talk asks Mook if she will have lunch with him, as he has something important to talk to her about. At breakfast, Kate corners Victoria, who is eating with her family, and tells her that she recognizes her from somewhere, and it turns out they went to a baby shower for their mutual friend, Claire, years ago. Victoria is rude and clearly doesn't remember Kate, and the whole conversation is awkward. When Kate leaves, Victoria's son, Lachlan, tells her she was rude, but she doesn't seem to care. Elsewhere, Mook comes to see Chelsea and Rick and goes through their treatments at the spa that morning. Chelsea is looking forward to her massage, while Rick is annoyed she has booked him in for a stress-reducing meditation treatment that he tells her he won't be going to. She reveals that she made a new friend at the bar the previous night, and she has asked them to dinner, and Chelsea tells Rick she accepted the invitation, which he's cross about. Chelsea tells Rick he will get on with Chloe's boyfriend because they have a lot in common, like the fact they are both old and going bald. Valentine, the health mentor, comes to see Kate, Lori, and Jacqueline and tells them he is looking forward to working with them all. Kate and Jacqueline joke that Lori needs to flirt with him as she is the only single one between them. At the spa, the Ratliff family gets their individual relaxation schedules, but Timothy just wants to go to the gym. Meanwhile, Belinda talks with Pornchai from the spa, and they agree to give each other their signature treatment, and then they can compare notes afterward. As his family has their treatments, Timothy calls his assistant at home, and she says that she hasn't heard from his colleague that he was trying to get hold of, but that someone from the Washington Post was trying to get hold of him, meaning a second newspaper is after an interview. As Chelsea has her massage, which she talks all the way through, Rick goes for his stress-relieving session with spa worker Amrita. She asks him about his stress levels, and he says he has always been stressed even when he was a child because his father was murdered and his mother was a drug addict who overdosed when he was 10. Gaitok tells Mook over lunch that he likes her, that they are from the same town, and her brothers even like him. He asks her on a date, but it seems she doesn't feel the same way because she jokes about the date, telling him to stop acting weird and to just eat his lunch. Over lunch, Chelsea asks Rick how his session with Amrita was, but he fobs her off and says there is no way he is going back for another session. Chloe comes to the table to see if Chelsea wants to hang out together, and Chelsea makes excuses for why Rick is so rude and walks off with her new friend. At the beach, Kate, Lori, and Jacqueline are hanging out, and Jacqueline asks Lori how her session with Valentin went. She tells her friends that he told her she had the stats of a woman half her age, and Jacqueline says he said the same thing to her. It then gets competitive between the women about who got what readings for hydration and fat levels before talk turns to Jacqueline and her new husband, who she says she is addicted to. Lori, who is divorced, says that she has only been married a year, so give it time, and the conversation turns awkward and sour. Chelsea and Chloe complain to one another about their rude boyfriends, and Chloe says she has Gary's credit card and they should go to the resort shop and spend his money. Lachlan and Piper are sitting on hammocks in the sea when Lachlan tells his sister that their older brother Saxon, who is obsessed with the opposite sex, says that Piper has never slept with anyone, which is weird, because she is hot. Piper is horrified that her brother is talking about her like that, and swims off, disgusted. At the front gate, Valentine arrives on a motorbike and distracts Gaitok with talk about a fight that he is going to that weekend and asking if he would like a ticket. As they are talking, a black car drives into the resort, and a man jumps out with a mask on and his hood up. He storms into the resort shop and gets out a gun, pointing it at Chelsea, who is shopping with Chloe. He smashes the jewelry cases open and takes out the necklaces and stuffs them into his backpack. He then runs out of the shop and back into the car, which drives towards the gate. He gets out and forces the barrier, but Gaitok tries to stop him. However, they end up in a fight and Gaitok is knocked out. The car speeds off and later the police and an ambulance arrive to take statements and check Gaitok over, while Chelsea struggles with being held at gunpoint. Mook comes to see Gaitok to make sure he is okay. She says he is very brave and she was worried about him, which he likes, and we see an attraction between them both. At dinner, Chloe is miffed about missing seeing the thief as she was in the changing room, but Chelsea tells her that she almost died and she was lucky to miss it. Rick seems pleased that as a result of Chelsea being caught up in the robbery, they have got their room for free for the duration of their stay. But things are awkward when Chloe's boyfriend, Gary, doesn't say much. They end up talking about work, but neither of the men gives away what they do, both claiming their careers cover this and that. While they are talking, Belinda sees Gary from afar, and it looks like she might recognize him from somewhere. While she seems to struggle to place him, we know it is Greg from seasons 1 and 2, who is married to Tanya. As people finish dinner, the evening entertainment begins, and hotel owner Shritala sings as her staff dance. But while everyone enjoys the show, Rick is fixated on Shritala, clearly still determined to somehow speak to her husband. Later, he overhears Shritala telling Jacqueline that she is going to Bangkok the next day because her husband has just got out of hospital there. Timothy finally gets through to his colleague Kenny at home, and he is shocked when he tells him he doesn't care about the Wall Street Journal calling because the FBI has just been and raided his office after a whistleblower called them. Timothy tells Kenny that he promised this would never happen, but Kenny is panicking about going to jail now. The police have everything from his emails to his personal documents. He tells Tim he should never have gone to Bruni and that he regrets taking the position. It turns out that Tim is now caught up in a money laundering business after doing a favor to his friend, and he starts to panic when Ken tells him that he needs to get a decent lawyer and fast. Tim's fuming because he only made $10 million out of the scheme, and now he could be facing prison. Tim tells his friend that if he mentions his name when questioned by the police, he will find him and kill him. But Kenny replies that he doesn't have to bother because he is going to kill himself. And the whole time Tim is talking on the phone, Gaitok is secretly listening in from his security hut. As Jacqueline heads to bed, Kate and Lori stay up and talk, but instead of bitching about Lori like the previous night, Kate now talks about Jacqueline to Lori. The women say that Jacqueline's marriage sounds fake and that she has had lots of work done to maintain her perfect complexion, both clearly jealous of their friend. As Tim tries to get himself a lawyer and fast, Rick tells Chelsea that he needs to go to Bangkok, but he won't tell her why, and she doesn't seem to mind that he is so mysterious. Third episode opens with Victoria dreams she's standing on the beach as a huge tsunami wave crashes down on her. Could be some kind of warning, Piper tells her, and with Timothy staring down a prison sentence for financial crimes, yeah, there's a storm a-comin'. At breakfast, Rick decides to stop staring at resort owner Shritala and walks right up to her, telling her he's a film producer who wants to put her in a big Hollywood movie. She's charmed, and he gets her number. Meanwhile, Valentine offers the three ladies an energy healing session, and Jacqueline prods Lori to take him up on it. He's a fling kind of guy, I can tell. Timothy's phone keeps buzzing, and he finally answers it to hear that federal agents are looking for him at his office. And when Saxon starts getting calls from work, too, Timothy grabs his son's phone and shuts it off. In fact, he's had a change of heart. He thinks they should all turn their phones into the hotel for the week and concentrate on being present. When Saxon hesitates, Timothy reasons with him. Maybe there's got to be more to life than success. So Saxon relents, and they all tie their devices up in a bag for hotel staffer Pam to put in the safe. Plus, before Lachlan leaves to get a posture correction treatment, Saxon announces it's now his mission to get his baby bro laid this week. The three women take a suggestive yoga class with Valentine, with him caressing their bodies to adjust their poses. Rick has another session with Amrita, admitting that I've done a lot of bad things and realizing that after his father's murder, I can't get my life back. But maybe I can still get some satisfaction. Piper pays a visit to a monk at a temple and tells him she's considering spending a year there after she graduates college. Laurie gets an energy healing session from Valentine, and Lachlan goes for his posture adjustment, with the spa worker telling him he sits in a defensive posture. You're protecting yourself with your female side. Chelsea and Chloe lie out by the pool, and Chloe shares that Gary's ex-wife was a mental patient who killed herself. Rick decides to go into town to buy weed, so Chelsea leaves with him, and Saxon slides in next to Chloe. Gaytok is feeling good after Shritala thanked him for trying to stop the robbery, but her bodyguards burst his bubble, telling him Fabian wanted to fire him, and Shritala saved his job. Even without his phone, Timothy still looks anxious. So Victoria offers him one of her pills. He reluctantly pops one down the hatch. After scoring some street weed, Rick takes Chelsea to a snake show, and he complains that the snakes shouldn't be caged up. As a snake handler pulls out venomous cobras, Rick starts to freak out a little. It might be the weed? And he runs into the room where the snakes are kept, setting them all free. When Chelsea catches up to him, he's holding a snake, and a cobra sneaks up and bites her on the calf. She's rushed to a hospital while Rick follows in a taxi. She's fine, though, and soon Rick is back to grumbling as Chloe invites them out on a boat tour with Gary tomorrow. Saxon tells his family he got them invited on Gary's boat tour tomorrow, but Victoria wants to know first if they're decent people. Well, they're rich people, and that's good enough for Saxon. Timothy is back in the room, passed out on pills, and Belinda keeps looking over at Gary, sure that she knows him. Gaitok gets called into a meeting tomorrow with Fabian, and Rick calls a friend named Frank in Bangkok, telling him, I need your help with a couple things. Chelsea is still angry at Rick about letting the snakes loose. Snakes are evil. Read the Bible. But he counters, even evil things shouldn't be treated like CT. It's only going to make them more evil. She promises to haunt him in this life and the next if he gets her killed, so he has that to look forward to. Pornchai walks Belinda back to her room and says goodbye with a smile. I hope you have good dreams of me, and I will have good dreams of you. Back at the ladies' room, it's Kate's turn to feel left out as Jacqueline and Laurie laugh it up without her. And while Victoria sleeps, Timothy sneaks into her things and takes another one of her pills. Fourth episode opens with Jacqueline lying in bed. We are privy to a phone call made to her husband, who is still on set and is unable to talk to her. It seems that Laurie and Kate's gossipy assumptions about the facade of Jacqueline's perfect relationship might bear some weight. But Jacqueline will never allow her friends to see that, and instead of carrying the melancholy with her during the day, she is determined to let her hair down and party. Jacqueline pioneers the decision to leave the wellness resort and find a beach club that is a lively change of pace, convincing her friends that they are also sick of doing yoga every day. They look to Valentine to recommend other destinations in the area, and he obliges. Ecstatic, they reach the beach club and settle into their respective loungers, drink in hand. While Jacqueline speaks to two other clubgoers whose husbands were dead, it slowly dawns on her that everyone else at the club is visibly old. Completely aghast, she hurries her friends out of there and back to the resort, where they bump into Valentine. This time, Jacqueline is determined to find a place where she can let loose and drags the unassuming Valentine into the cab with her friends. The new place he takes them to is yet to open in an hour. So while he gathers his own friends, he leaves them in the market street where the Songkran festival is running. As a part of the Thai New Year, The festival is known for its water gun fights, and the three friends innocently walk down the street. However, they attract the attention of a group of ruthless children who completely douse the three in water. They temporarily find shelter in a convenience store with no back exit, but the kids are menacingly standing outside, waiting for their soaked victims. The next time we see Jacqueline, Lori, and Kate, they are dried off and have reached the beach club, where they are introduced to Valentine's friends. After their strange misadventures in this episode, they have finally reached a place where they can feel young and hot again, even if Lori is the only single. Eyeing up their new companions, they have a resounding cheers that signals the start of their night. It is finally the day Rick has been waiting for. He is going to Bangkok. However, Chelsea doesn't let him off the hook just yet, conjuring up tears to convince him to go to the yacht party hosted by Chloe and Gary. As they start to make their way to the docks, Chelsea is distracted by the store attendant she experienced the robbery with and quickly leaves Rick to check up on her. During this brief departure, Rick bumps into Amrita, who insists on another meditation session together, claiming she was touched by Rick's story. When he tells her he is flying to Bangkok that night, she leaves him with a couple of optimistic words, reassuring him that she still believes there is hope for him to break free of his past. As expected, Rick sustains his grumpy demeanor on the boat, but this time, Chelsea reaches her breaking point and demands to know what is going on. Faced with an ultimatum, Rick uncharacteristically gives in and opens up, uncovering the first spilled secret of this White Lotus episode. When Rick's mother was on her deathbed, she revealed the name of the person who murdered his father, the resort owner, or Shritala's husband. Hearing about his stroke, Rick decided it was the perfect time to visit Thailand and track him down. Though he claims he simply wants to face him and force him to acknowledge how he impacted Rick's life, Chelsea is convinced of a "you killed my father, prepare to die" situation. Despite her insistence, Rick refuses to let Chelsea accompany him, and thus they part ways, with Chelsea continuing her night on the yacht at the full moon party, and Rick lashing out at other tourists at the local airport. The White Lotus's Ratliff storyline kicks off with a typical sibling argument that is disrupted by an accidental indecent exposure from the patriarch. Tim is still oozing stress, making his pill-popping habit noticeable enough for Victoria to accuse her kids of skimming her lorazepam. As they bicker, and Tim makes his involuntary interruption, the matter is dropped, and they leave for Chloe and Gary's yacht. On the boat, Victoria makes a point of hiding her bag, but little does she realize she needs to hide it from her husband, who later sneaks back and escalates to stealing the entire bottle. Mixing the medication with alcohol, Tim is unable to exude his usual Southern charm, being short with the other partygoers and becoming emotional when Piper thanks him for the trip. Throughout all this, Victoria is as elegantly judgmental as ever, keeping her compliments backhanded and her disapproving eyes behind her sunglasses, while only betraying her true thoughts of everyone being criminals, killers, and gold diggers to her family. As per usual, Lachlan is torn between his two siblings, with Saxon convinced Piper is going to turn Lachlan into a social outcast, and Piper worried Lachlan will become a walking dildo like Saxon. While we suspect where Lachlan's loyalties instinctively lie, Piper is about to get a rude awakening, but not before she drops a secret of her own. She asks Lachlan for morale support during dinner because she is going to reveal the truth about why she wanted to come to Thailand. Piper wasn't planning to interview a monk for her thesis. She wanted to spend a year at the meditation center. Before Lachlan can properly react, Saxon tears him away to continue his brainwashing routine on his younger brother as they flirt with the younger women in front of their older boyfriends. When the daytime party is over, Lachlan decides to stay on the boat with Saxon for the full moon party, abandoning Piper to face dinner with her parents alone. After recognizing Greg in the White Lotus Season 3, Episode 3, Belinda is unable to get him off her mind, even when she is excited about her son coming to the resort the next day. She decides to do a quick Google search for Tanya and learns of her death and the mysterious circumstances around it. Further research reveals that Greg is wanted for questioning in Sicily, but he isn't returning any calls from the police. On the yacht, Greg is generally isolated from the party and only returns to the guests after Chloe begs him for the boat for the late-night celebrations, while he has to go back home to sort something elusive out. After this awkward scene that exposes the cracks in their relationship, Greg has an enigmatic conversation with Tim about people moving to Thailand because they are either looking for something or running away from something. Meanwhile, Gaitak's meeting with Fabian, which was set up in the previous episode, turns into subtle comments of disapproval about endangering the hotel and a command to increase security. As such, a gun is introduced to the show. Later on, when Gaitak goes to inspect the gun, Mook surprises him, and they go on a walk to talk about their first date, leaving it unattended in the security hut. While they are gone, incidentally, Tim walks up the driveway while taking a stressful phone call. He had retrieved his phone from the staff member's safe and found out that the FBI had already raided his offices. It was likely that Tim would go to jail and that his assets would be frozen. Distressed, he proclaims that he would rather die than go to prison, and ultimately returns his phone to the staff so he can return to dinner, where his wife ironically declares him a Boy Scout. When Gaitak returns to the security hut, the gun is missing. Fifth episode begins as Gaitak is frantically scouring his booth for his missing gun. By searching the security footage, he discovers Timothy has taken it. When he looks for Timothy in the restaurant, he finds the doomed businessman enduring an awkward family conversation as Piper announces her big news. She wants to move to Thailand to study Buddhism for a year, and she's not working on a thesis after all. Her mother, Victoria, is obviously shocked, unable to believe a world exists beyond the pristine borders of her rich community in North Carolina. "Honey, you're not from China," she says. "You can be interested in this stuff, but you can never be it." She's so flustered, she forgets where they are. Gaitak can't bring himself to approach Tim, so he follows him to the bathroom instead. Gaitak tells him, "I cannot find something. I think you have it." Tim says he doesn't know what he's talking about and leaves. Meanwhile, on the yacht, Saxon is hyping Lachlan up for their night with Chloe and Chelsea. Chloe is actually interested in getting some action. She just wants some attention because Gary won't give her any, but Chelsea is not on the same page. She could never cheat on Rick. She's a romantic. Besides, she's too worried something really bad's gonna happen while he's away in Bangkok. "He's like my child," she says. He's 50, but it's true. Another party is forming in the club with Jacqueline, Kate, and Lori, who are now joined by Valentine and his childhood friends, Alexei and Vlad. When Valentine invites Lori to dance, the rest follow. Jacqueline even sandwiches herself between two of the men, making a group of younger women across the dance floor visibly jealous. She feels victorious. Back at the hotel, Belinda is fearful when hotel manager Fabian tells her that a guest has been asking about her. She suspects it's Greg, which is not a good sign considering he's suspected of killing his wife. Belinda warns Fabian about Greg. Should they call the police? But Fabian shuts her down, saying they shouldn't be gossiping about their guests. Later that night, Belinda shows Pornchai the Greg news and expresses her anxiety. He notices there's something hiding in her room. It's a lizard. He shoos the creature out of her place, but she's too freaked out to spend the night alone now. She asks him to stay, and they kiss before going to bed. When the Ratliffs get back from dinner, Victoria continues to harp on Piper's post-grad plans. What if Buddhism is a cult? What if the monk makes her one of his sister wives? What if she gets brainwashed? Look at the Catholics. Organized religion and deviant sex can go hand in hand, she says. Where's the lie? Victoria insists that Timothy, whose mind is clearly elsewhere, visit the monastery to vet the location and the monk Piper wants to study with. Piper's brothers arrive at the full moon party with Chelsea and Chloe and continue to pound drinks. Saxon tells Lockie to slow down, let the girls get messy instead. "One day, I'm gonna take you down," Lockie tells his brother with a laugh. When Chloe comes back with a few pills, Saxon refuses. He doesn't take drugs except Adderall for work, but to his surprise, Lockie pops one into his mouth. completely disregarding his advice. Eventually, Chelsea and Chloe also take one, and Saxon is peer pressured into following suit. With his low tolerance, he can barely handle walking through the crowd. As they watch fireworks on the beach, Lockie rubs Saxon's back. Chelsea tried calling Rick several times, but he misses each attempt as he reunites with his longtime friend Frank, who meets him in a hotel bar in Bangkok, equipped with a mysterious black duffel bag. When they order drinks, Rick learns his old pal has been sober for 10 months. He partied too hard but ultimately turned to religion, specifically in Buddhism, here in Thailand. Frank then details his bizarre personal journey. He always had a thing for Asian girls, he says, so had a field day when he first moved to Thailand. But one night, when he brought home a ladyboy, which he had done before, he wanted to feel what it was like to be the one penetrated. It changed everything. He realized that he didn't just want to be with an Asian girl, he wanted to actually be one. He started to wear lingerie and perfume to feel like a woman. When he had men over, sometimes multiple at a time, he'd hire an Asian woman just to sit there and watch. The whole experience made Frank wonder inside, could I be an Asian girl? That's when he turned to Buddhism. After getting tired from dancing, Lori, Kate, and Jacqueline and their pals retreat to their table for another round of shots, but Kate is starting to lose steam and passes on her drink. Lori takes it instead, impressing Valentin. The vibe is killed when one of the women from earlier approaches the table and starts fighting with Alexei. Kate says it's time to go home, but her girlfriends end up inviting the guys over to the villa. Kate doesn't love that idea. This is another very real element of a girl's trip. Being the person who wants to go to bed when everyone else still wants to party. As the festivities continue in their pool, Kate is in her PJs while everyone else is stripping down into their bathing suits and underwear. When things start to die down, Lori is left rambling to Valentin and Alexei about work and her divorce, clearly boring them. Vlad trauma dumping on Kate seems to be her final straw. She politely manages to get their guests to leave. As they say their goodbyes, Lori whispers something in Valentin's ear. Jacqueline tells her after the guys are gone, "You should have hooked up with them." But in a surprising turn of events, Jacqueline is the one who gets an overnight guest. Valentin secretly returns later in the night to sleep over. Back on the boat, Chelsea is tired of always worrying about Rick. "I have pain too," she says, adding, "Bad things have happened to me." It's clear her joyful disposition is a defense mechanism. Someone help Chelsea. Chloe has less regard for Gary's feelings as she considers hooking up with Lachlan. "Gary might kill me. He might be capable of it," she says, but she's willing to take the risk. Over in Bangkok, Rick pulls a gun out of the bag Frank gave him and tries calling Chelsea finally. But this time she won't answer because she's playing drinking games with Chloe and the Ratliff brothers. It's like spin the bottle without the bottle. Lockie and Chloe kiss. Then Saxon, in his classic cocky behavior, asks the girls to kiss each other for his enjoyment. They do, but the ladies also dish it right back. Chloe points at the brothers and signals that now they should kiss each other for her entertainment. Things are a little hazy for them given all the alcohol and drugs, but after some initial confusion, Lockie leans over to give Saxon a quick peck on the mouth. But Chloe goads him to go in for a bigger smooch, and he and his brother kiss again. Saxon is flustered, Chelsea is weirded out, and Chloe is slouched over in laughter. She has these boys wrapped around her finger. As if things couldn't get stranger for the Ratliff family, Timothy is up in the middle of the night writing a suicide note. He holds a gun to his head, but he can't shoot. Victoria wakes up and finds him, and notices that he hasn't been acting like himself lately. Tim nearly breaks as he vents about the expectations placed on him since day one. As he mentioned in the last episode, his grandpa was governor, and his dad was a successful businessman. He had a lot to live up to since he was born. She tries to cheer him up by saying he's already achieved so much, and goes back to bed. Tim gets on his knees and prays in desperation. He's going to need all the help he can get. Sixth episode begins as two brothers wake up in a daze, not really remembering what happened during their drunken night on the boat with Chloe and Chelsea. Saxon remembers flashes, though, of trying to hook up with Chelsea and getting rejected, Chloe endures a rough phone call with Greg, telling Chelsea he thinks I hooked up with one of the brothers. Did she? Chelsea asks. No, I hooked up with both of them, she slyly replies. The memories start to flood back to Saxon, and though he insists to Lachlan they both blacked out, he seems to remember Lachlan reaching over to his bed during sex and gets nauseous thinking about it. So what did really happen? At the pool, a still reeling Saxon confronts Chelsea about not hooking up with him. She insists Rick is her soulmate, and that Saxon wouldn't understand because he's soulless. Then when Chloe joins them, she tells Saxon that Greg knows about you. She says it's fine, though. He was actually turned on or something. Chelsea thinks he might want a threesome, and Saxon claims he's never had one with another guy. But then Chloe asks, what about last night? Saxon insists he and Lachlan just kissed, and only because the girls forced them to. But I didn't force him to jerk you off, Chloe counters. Huh? Saxon says that never happened, and Chelsea looks surprised to hear that. He says he blacked out, but Chloe says, well, I didn't. She tells him it's fine, but Saxon is clearly disturbed by what he learned. And later, when Lachlan is meditating, he has visions of the night before, and of reaching over and, giving Saxon a hand while having sex with Chloe. Holy Lannisters! So how is Saxon going to cope with this knowledge? And how will this affect an already tense dynamic between the Ratliffs? There are only 2 episodes left for us to find out. Timothy was still contemplating taking his own life with the gun he stole from Gaitok, but he stopped short, hiding the gun in a drawer and joining Victoria on a visit to the monastery Piper wants to join. Timothy sat down with the monk, who explained that many young Americans come there after chasing money and pleasure to avoid pain. You cannot outrun pain, though, he declared, and that hit Timothy hard. Timothy also asked him what happens when we die. And the monk shared his theory that each person is like a drop of water that returns to an ocean of mass consciousness after dying. It's a happy return, like coming home, he said. And Timothy seemed to like that. Did that just make it more likely that he ends up pulling the trigger? Jacqueline's secret tryst was discovered right away. Kate spotted Valentine leaving her room in the morning and then went and blabbed to Lori, who was understandably upset. She told Kate that Jacqueline has not changed at all, sniping that she practically lives off male attention. Lori later confronted Jacqueline, who denied hooking up with Valentin, but Lori was still steaming. We're still the same people we were in the 10th grade. She lashed out at Kate, too. I'm not like you. Sometimes I just have to be honest. They're still going to the Muay Thai fight Valentine invited them to, though, so we can expect more fireworks there. Rick enlisted his pal Frank, who has a very colorful past, we learned, to pose as the director of the fake movie he's producing, so they can con their way into Shritala's house and Rick can confront her husband about murdering his father, which we're still not sure he actually did, but anyway. Rick assured Frank he wouldn't kill him, though. I just need 10 minutes with the guy. I need for him to know how bad he fucked me up. They eventually made it inside Shritala's house, and the episode ended just as Rick caught sight of Shritala's husband. It feels like there's a twist coming here. Is Rick's father not the angel he thinks he is? Or is Shritala's husband actually Rick's father, and he started a new life in Thailand? Belinda reunited with her son Zion, who arrived just in time to catch his mom in bed with Pornchai. Pornchai offered to open a spa with her in Thailand, and then Greg popped up, jump scare, to invite her to dinner at his house that night. I think we should talk. He invited Saxon and his family over too, so it seems like he's getting all of his targets in one place. While the Ratliffs were away at the monastery, Gaitok snuck into their suite and managed to find the missing gun, taking it back to the security booth just in time to test it out at the gun range. He turned out to be a pretty good shot, but his boss still doubted if he has a killer instinct. Gaitok insisted he does, and we're getting worried that he's going to try to prove that by getting involved in the deadly shootout we all know is coming. Piper agreed to spend the night at the monastery to prove to Victoria it's the right place for her. And Lachlan volunteered to tag along too. So that means they'll be safe from whatever chaos is happening at Gary's place next week at least. Seventh episode begins with Rick, who finally makes his way inside Shritala's house to come face to face with her husband Jim Hollinger, aka the guy who Rick thinks murdered his father. Rick's pal Frank plays the role of big shot movie director who wants to cast Shritala in and breaking his sobriety to order a whiskey. Rick pulls Jim aside to give them some privacy, and they retire to Jim's den, where Rick admires old photos of Jim with local dignitaries. Jim says Thailand has been good to him over the years, and if someone got in his way, Rick asks, "Lots of ways to take care of that," Jim smiles. Jim says he has 2 daughters with Shritala, and Rick grumbles, "If you don't have a happy childhood, you don't have much, right?" He reveals that he first heard Jim's name at age 10, when his mother was dying. He brings up the name Gloria Hatchett, but Jim doesn't recognize it. Rick accuses Jim of having his father killed over a land deal. "I never got to meet him because you're a fucking piece of shit." He pulls out the gun Frank gave him and points it at Jim's head, telling him, "You ruined my fucking life." And it's kind of funny how in the other room, Frank and Sritala are giggling and drinking, watching her old movies, blissfully unaware. Rick puts the gun down, but he steps menacingly towards Jim, acting like he's going to swing at him, but he stops himself. Instead, he pushes Jim backwards so he crashes to the ground, hitting his head on the floor, and Rick runs off, grabbing Frank and beating a hasty retreat. Once they're safe, Rick tells Frank that he had built Jim up in his mind for years, but he's just this pathetic, frail old man. He feels like he got closure now, and he and Frank decide to party hard, hitting a Bangkok sex club and bringing girls back to a hotel room for drinks and drugs, and Rick just sits wearing a serene smile. After learning that Jacqueline slept with Valentine behind her back and lied about it, Lori is still fuming as the 3 ladies head to dinner, guzzling Rose and needling Jacqueline with passive-aggressive digs. Jacqueline doesn't understand why Lori is so bothered, and when Kate takes Jacqueline's side, Lori brings up how Jacqueline hit on Kate's husband Dave at her wedding. Jacqueline thinks Lori just likes to play the victim. If you always choose the short stick, is it bad luck? Or are you doing it to yourself? Kate agrees that Lori is always disappointed, and Lori lashes out, calling Kate fake and Jacqueline selfish before storming off to attend the Muay Thai fight solo. She meets up with Valentine there, and Alexei and Vlad soon join them, with Alexei getting cozy with her and offering her a swig of his beer. While Jacqueline and Kate turn on each other back at the hotel, Lori goes home with Alexei and has uninhibited sex with him. So she's winning. Well, not so fast. After they do the deed, Alexei tells Lori he can't leave the country because he's overstayed his visa, and his mother is old and sick back in Russia. He just needs $10,000 to pay off her debts and fly her to Thailand. Can Lori help him out? She tries to politely decline, but he presses her. "I know you're rich." She claims to not have that kind of money on her, but he's undeterred. "You have PayPal? Zelle?" Just then, there's an angry knock at Alexei's door. It's the jealous Russian girl from the club, and Lori scrambles to put on her clothes before she's discovered. She runs to the back of Alexei's apartment and looks out a window when the Russian girl barges in, slapping Alexei in the nether regions and asking, "Where is your little bitch?" Lori climbs out the window and dangles from the ledge, with the Russian girl slapping her in the head as she drops to the ground. She hails a taxi back to the resort. Saxon heads to Chloe's party with his parents, and when he makes fun of the old balding dudes with young Thai girlfriends, Chelsea offers, "That's going to be you in 30 years. Saxon is still worried about Gary after his night on the boat with Chloe, but she reassures him she and Gary had a long talk, and he finally opened up about his sexual fantasies. Gary told her as a kid, his parents would have loud sex with the door open, and he would watch. And as an adult, he was always paranoid that his girlfriends were cheating on him, but he kind of wanted to catch them doing it. His worst nightmare was his erotic fantasy. So Chloe asks Saxon if he's interested in sticking around after the party and helping Gary. Saxon says absolutely not, but Chloe assures him Gary wouldn't touch him. He just wants to creep up on us. She really thinks it would help their relationship, but Saxon turns her down flat and walks Chelsea home instead, insisting to her that he's not a bad guy. I could be somebody else if I wanted. Chelsea offers to help him get started, guiding him through a seated meditation on her bed. But when he tries touching her hands, she pulls away and ends the night to call Rick. Belinda is still petrified of Greg, but her son Zion talks her into going to the party anyway. At the party, Greg pulls her aside, and Belinda braces herself. But Greg surprises her. He tells her yes, something tragic happened to Tanya, but he didn't have anything to do with it, and he came to Thailand to avoid all the questions and assumptions. I just don't want to have any more headaches if I can help it. Tanya used to talk about Belinda, he reveals, and she felt guilty about not opening that spa with her. So he's decided to offer Belinda $100,000 and hopes that if she accepts it, she can let him spend his days in peace. Belinda calls the offer very generous, but she tells Greg she needs time to think about it, grabbing Zion and ditching the party. Zion thinks she should take the money, but she doesn't want to be an accomplice to murder. Zion points out that it's enough money that she could take a whole year off, and if she doesn't accept it, Greg may come after her, and him too. Piper and Lachlan spent the night at the Thai monastery, and Lachlan wasn't a fan of the bland food. But he seemed to get something out of the head monk's teachings, and he told Piper he wants to join her and stay at the monastery for a year. Right now, I really don't feel like going home, he admitted. Like ever. But Piper didn't look thrilled to hear that. Gaitok took Mook on a cute date to a night market, where she encouraged him to be more ambitious and embrace his killer instinct. Then at the Muay Thai fight, Gaitok scanned the crowd and spotted Valentine with Lori, Alexei, and Vlad, and recognized Vlad as the driver from the jewelry store robbery in episode 2. So Vlad and Alexei were the robbers, and Valentine distracted Gaitok at the gate to get them inside. Timothy is still woozy on Victoria's pills, and he felt even worse after Saxon demanded to know what's wrong, telling his dad that this job is all he has. If I'm not a success, I'm nothing. And I can't handle being nothing. That, coupled with Victoria's statements last week that she couldn't handle being poor, led to Timothy reaching for the stolen gun and contemplating a family murder-suicide. But when he looked, the gun was gone. Victoria just kept being Victoria at the party, cornering the young Thai girl from the boat and asking her, "Why are you with this middle-aged weirdo?" She even offered to have the girl come to North Carolina, where Victoria could introduce her to some respectable men. Plus, before going to bed, she prayed that Piper would be miserable in that temple tonight. Maybe Jesus will save her from those Buddhists. 8th episode begins with Lachlan and Piper returning from the monastery, with the younger Ratliff brother insistent that he'll join his sister on her new quest. Except, in a hilarious twist of events, she's decided she's just like her mum and prefers a life of luxury, much to the horror of their now broke father, who's destined for jail after committing fraud. We also quickly go back to the hotel in Bangkok, where Frank and Rick have been partying with strippers all night after backing out of killing Jim, with Rick deciding it's time for him to return to Chelsea and walking away from the chaos. Saxon and Lachlan then finally butt heads over that incest storyline, but thankfully they decide they'll never speak on it again. The episode then cuts to Gaitok confronting Valentine about his 2 Russian friends that he thinks were the people that robbed the hotel jewelry shop way back at the start of the series, but he insists they're just some guys he knows from the gym. However, he later comes back and anxiously tells Gaitok, "I know you know. Please don't say anything. If you do, I'm dead." Once Rick returns to the hotel, he and Chelsea were actually just really happy to see each other on the beach after being apart for a few days. However, we're then left feeling on edge once again when Chelsea brings up amor fati, which is the idea of accepting one's fate, whether good or bad, and also happens to be the title of the episode. "If a bad thing happens to you, it happens to me," she says. Timothy once again starts spiraling when he spots Victoria and Piper going wild in the pricey gift shop because he's still not told them about everything that's going on, and with his gun now missing, he needs to find another way out. He asks Saxon whether he thinks he could live with no money, no house, nothing, and is relieved to hear him say yes. Timothy pulls a piece of the fruit from the pong pong tree when he's rudely interrupted by Pam, who explains that it's also known as the suicide tree because the seeds of the fruit are deadly. So naturally, he rips open every fruit he can find as soon as she leaves and uses Saxon's blender to create his deadly drink. However, it's not over just yet because he doesn't drink it. He instead hides it in a cupboard. But at the family's final dinner, Timothy asks the server to bring cocktail ingredients up to their room for later and notes that they have a blender. Later that evening, we see him throwing the pina colada ingredients in with the deadly seeds, and not only making a drink for himself, but his family too, except for Lachlan, who he says is too young to drink it. It's thought the family's fate is sealed when they all take a sip and question why it tastes weird, but Timothy once again backs out and knocks the glass from Saxon's hand, claiming the coconut milk is off. Meanwhile, Belinda and Zion go and meet Greg to negotiate new terms of their blood money deal. They want $5 million compared to the $100,000 originally offered, and Greg isn't willing to budge. When Belinda pretends to walk away, however, he confirms he'll think about it. Speaking of silence, it could appear that Gaitok is willing to cut a deal with Valentine, as he's seen praying at the temple, presumably for forgiveness that he's covering up the robbery, before questioning whether he should quit being a guard entirely because he doesn't want to hurt anyone. By morning, the whole Ratliff family is asleep, except for Lachlan, who goes to make a protein shake in Saxon's blender, with the remnants of the poison fruit still on the tub. He quickly begins to feel unwell after drinking it and collapses by the pool. Jim and Shritala Hollinger return to the White Lotus following the Bangkok ordeal with Rick and Frank, and he doesn't seem happy about what happened. "You come into my house, lie to my wife, get the fucking out of here," the hotel owner tells Rick at breakfast, hurling insults at his mother and unveiling a gun under his jacket. "What, you're gonna try to kill me now?" he adds. Chelsea tries to talk Rick down from overreacting. "Please don't do something stupid," she begs. After Jim and Shritala Hollinger's bodyguards begin chasing Rick down at breakfast over his trip to Bangkok, Chelsea follows them around the resort as things take a bad turn. Rick pulls the gun out of Jim's pocket and points it at him before saying, "Fucking you," and shooting him twice. Except that isn't the biggest bombshell, because Rick tells his wife that he killed Jim for killing his father, before learning that Jim was his father the whole time. It's too late for explanations with Rick, when he and Chelsea then face a tense shootout with Jim's bodyguards, with Rick managing to catch one pretty quickly from behind a statue. Of course, that's not the only bodyguard the richest guy at the resort had, and he fires again, successfully killing another one. However, within seconds, Rick turns around to find his girlfriend, Chelsea, lying on the ground having been caught in the firing line, leaving him distraught as she dies in his arms. "We'll be together forever, okay? Just like you said," he tells her. He drops the gun and carries her away from the scene. As Rick carries Chelsea away, Gaitok arrives at the scene of Shritala cradling a dying Jim. She orders him to shoot and points him in the direction of the perpetrator. He quickly catches up to Rick and second-guesses himself when he realizes who it is. "Kill him," Shritala demands, before Gaitok pulls the trigger, also killing Rick, who, holding Chelsea, falls into the pond. The pair are seen floating next to each other in the water, confirming it's over for them. During the final shots, we see Lachlan awaken from being unconscious after drinking the poisonous fruit, lying in his father, Timothy's arms. He somehow survived the ordeal, and in turn, made Timothy realize that perhaps he can fix things with his family. The Ratliffs then board the boat back to the airport, looking drastically different to how we saw them in episode 1. Saxon's reading a book, Piper is looking more confident than ever, and Lachlan is hiding beneath a Louis Vuitton hoodie and sunglasses. As they all get their phones back, and undoubtedly catch wind of what their father has been up to the whole time, he tells them, "Things are about to change. We'll get through it." We then get a glimpse of how everyone else is doing. Frank's gone back to the temple, Greg is enjoying watching Chloe finding her next casual fling at a villa pool party, and Gaitak gets Mook's seal of approval. The show ends with two body bags being wheeled across the airport runway, Rick and Chelsea, with Zion and Belinda, along with their newfound fortune, leaving the island on a plush boat.